Welcome to the Got Trauma Podcast with your hosts, Courtney K. and Monica Newland.
Hello, welcome back.
That's right. We're live in person.
In person again. This time, our neck of the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to be back in Muskoka. I love it here.
We're in my house tonight. This is the decorations left up from my bestie's birthday. We thought they were...
It's very appropriate.
Yeah.
And shiny, sparkly.
The lounge, too, that another really good friend left behind.
We are hoping that this is going to go well because
tonight has not been...
We're doing this at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's been...
Totally sober, even though we did pour ourselves some wine.
Yeah,
but
definitely
how many times have I had to put my kid down?
Like
three. At least.
Well, I mean,
like three, like where he's been asleep.
Oh, God. But it's hilarious because we had dinner planned. Dinner was the kids ate by 5:30. We ate by 6. Everything was running smooth. We got the kids to bed, and then all of a sudden it's like,
but they just don't go to sleep.
Marching through.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, it's 9:30. It's time for bed. They're just like, fuck you. I'm gonna do what you tell me.
Not interested.
So,
but we are here, excited to do an in-person episode.
Yes.
We're hopefully going to. Oh, it's just me.
Oh God, I thought it was the dog again. The dog's also trying to join us too.
Let's get comfy. Getting comfy. Settling in because we are going to do some story time. We got some stories.
Yeah.
Some fun stories. It's a little bit.
I mean,
no, fun's probably not.
Let's say like morbidly comical.
Yeah.
We'll refer to it as like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's
fun in the literal sense is not what it is.
No, I think it's funny that, like thinking about it before I start talking about it, just thinking back and then being, where I am now, being like, holy fuck, that was a really, really fucked up time in my life that I literally had no idea was that fucked up. And
yeah,
my body told me it was. My body was like, this is...
Yeah.
But, So.
But your body telling you that you're like, this isn't normal. But I feel like during that time, well, it depends on what story you're going to talk about. But if we're talking about the one
that you think about,
yeah, like we were a little bit older, but like we were just like in our own world.
Well, yeah, I think it was 17 or
so it's like it's almost like you're like ignorant to how
I think
ridiculous
too, again,
the situation.
When you talk about the thriving in chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was probably the most chaotic it had ever been, from the time I was a child until, I was obviously pretty much an adult.
Yeah.
Still like living, just you're getting in that mode of like moving out, whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was like my parents were finally just like, you know what, you're old enough to just handle your own shit. So we're just going to really unleash the fucking
It's
crazy
like they just threw in the towel. They're like, we're done. We're done. Just pretending like whatever this isn't. And
this probably won't kill you. It might fuck you up a lot, but it won't kill you. So get ready for that.
It's true. It did kind of feel like that at the time too. I remember, we'll tell you what it is, but I do remember going through it and being like, this is ridiculous, and everybody knows this is ridiculous, and I just remember being a little drunk.
Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, like I grew up an only child, so I mean, aside from the booze and the fighting and all that kind of chaos, I mean, relatively we kept it, we were very seemingly, I mean, maybe we weren't, I don't know, I think I thought we were a seemingly like middle class normal family, lived in a beautiful house, blah, blah, blah. So, as I, like the years started to go, the older I got, the stranger things became. Like just more, you could tell like it was like, we're really not trying to keep under wraps the fucking crazy. We're just going to just unleash it. And it's, very slowly. So I think maybe that's
it was like a slow build.
Yeah. So I think that's probably why I didn't
Your tolerance was high enough to not be like completely.
Oh yeah, I guess it eased me into it.
Yeah,
it eased me into it. So I wasn't as dumbfounded. I definitely like there were times where it was like this is
no,
but here we are. So anyways, just like things started to starting to slip. One story I'll start with was I was hosting a birthday party for a friend. I think it was the 16th birthday, maybe. I think it was something like that. Anyways, had a bunch of friends over and we were hanging out. And the next thing you know, my friend comes running out of the basement. She's like, "Your mom is making out with one of our friends." And I'm like, "What?" So sure enough, this occurred. And I'm like, "Oh." Meanwhile, my dad's upstairs sleeping. This is the thing. Like, they're still very much together. They were together until I was 19. So all this chaos happened while they were still married and living under the same roof. So anyways, this occurred. And I'm like, obviously, really just feeling, what do I do here? Like a panic set in because I'm embarrassed and I'm uncomfortable. And I'm like, this is not normal.
You're like, what the fuck?
What the fuck do I do? So I go upstairs and I let my dad, I was like, you need to come downstairs and, deal with the situation. Like, this isn't okay. And he comes down and instead of like doing anything to alleviate the situation, he just sits down and cracks a beer and makes it like, nothing ever happened. And it's kind of a joke. And I'm thinking, well, I don't feel like that's the way it should have been handled, but okay. And at no point was I mad at, really either of them, like my mom or the friend. Like, I wasn't mad at them. I was just confused.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
Obviously there was a lot of alcohol, so it's probably, a big contributor to what happened. And like the friend I had afterwards was very apologetic, and I honestly wasn't upset about it on that part of things because I'm kind of like, well, you're not really the adult here, so that's it's not really a you problem as far as
right. You weren't like blaming them for it because you're like,
and again, I always spun stuff like this humorously because it was the only way to, really digest it as far as it being because it really became a regular part of stranger behaviors that just got weirder and weirder. So I'm gonna skip like the leading up to and go right into the nit grit here. So again, I was at a neighbor's house and we were hanging out. I think one of us was getting tattoos. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, because you did that at someone's kitchen table. That was the thing. So on my way home, and my friend's like, "Hey, I'll walk you home because I gotta go home." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, thanks, that's great." And then lights are on at my house, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I'll come up and have a beer with your dad." And I was like, "Yeah, for sure, go on." So go in. They're having beers. My mom's there, and I go to bed. But I wake up the next morning to find out that my dad had caught this friend and my mom like having intercourse at the kitchen table. This is not, I did not make this up. This actually happened. Like, honestly, I think even Jerry Springer would have been like, what? So he caught them. Again, this is like his method of dealing with things at this point in time. What does he do? He sits down and cracks a beer and just starts talking like everything is normal. Everybody's like getting dressed and like carrying on. And anyways, I found out about this the next day. And of course, I'm mortified because I'm thinking, this person.
Who told you? Your dad?
I honestly don't remember who told.
You're like, hey, guess what happened last night?
Yeah, it kind of was
somebody.
Like that. I feel like it might have been my mom that told me. And I feel like she was feeling, again,
guilty?
A lot of alcohol was involved. So I don't know if it, probably yes, I would imagine guilty and
she was
uncomfortable.
Like, Courtney, we got to talk.
Pretty much.
I need to tell you something that happened last night.
Yeah, I think that's exactly kind of how it went down. And then
you're going to hear that this happened.
Well, I talked to my dad about it, and he was just kind of like nonchalantly, like, "Oh, she makes her happy," thinking,
And you're like, what is
But
going on?
wouldn't you guys want to not be together in this situation? Like, wouldn't you want to maybe somebody move out? Like, should somebody move out here? I don't. Maybe I should fucking move out. That's pretty much what I should have done, but I did not.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, you were young too.
Well, I was young enough. I should have realized, I guess, that like things were just escalating into a realm of fucking weird that I could barely touch. So it was about a week later, and everybody's partying again. And the thing is, like, at this point, this friend of mine and my mom they're getting very involved. You can see that they're becoming very involved. My dad's very much okay with this. I don't know how I feel about this. And I remember there was a conversation, and there was probably like 10 people at the house at the time, and they were having this and this is the thing, like, everybody else in the house is seeing this all go down, and nobody is reacting. Nobody's reacting. So why would I react, right? Everyone else seems to think this is normal, so I guess it's normal. Carrying on, it then this person was invited to come live with us and pay rent. And that was...
So I'm just going to sum this whole thing up in case you're just like listening to all this and you're like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Courtney's friend hooked up with her mother while Courtney was there. Well, the father was there. It's not a big scene. This is, for some reason, this is like not a big deal. No. Very weird. Then it happens again. Yes. Then it happens again. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you might as well just
move in,
live here with all of us because everyone seems to be fine with this except for you. Being
the weird part is, what the hell is going on? I can't say that I wasn't fine with it, because I really liked this person that, you know, was with my mom. So I just didn't. I knew my parents had been unhappy for such a long time, so I kind of felt like, and this is the fucked up part again, when you come back to like trauma bonding, because that's a trauma bond in a way, that I have been put in this situation that I should never have been put in. You know, everybody should have made their decisions to part ways and do their own things. So like this went on, this person lived with us, and it wasn't terrible by any means, but it's bizarre. Like it's totally, their rooms, my dad's in this room, they're in the next
across
room.
The hall.
They're across the hall from each other. You know, like we're breaking bread together all the time.
It's so bizarre because like you hear these like weird stories and that sort of thing. But I think what is the bigger picture of all of this is for you to have like gone through so many years of like very, you know, toxic behaviors.
It's almost like being groomed for it.
It's like, yeah, your tolerance was, you know, so low, or sorry, no, your tolerance, was so high, that you didn't really get super fazed by that.
No.
Like when you're living in chaos frequently, and then these sort of crazy situations happen, it's like you knew this was wrong. You're like, this is bizarre. This is not right. I see everyone's happy, so I'm not going to like rock the boat.
Well, and that's just
even though I am extremely uncomfortable and I'm not being talked to about what's going on. I'm an adult at this point, and nobody's like being honest with you about what the hell's going on.
Well, and I'm also this child that has been an adult, and you know, unfortunately, through my like teen years and early adulthood, I was still very much a child because I was never really allowed to be. Not that I wasn't, and I shouldn't say that, and I kind of need to like pull myself back a bit. Not that I wasn't allowed to be a child, because I did do a lot of child things. It was the emotional that was put on me that I had to continuously,
and that you couldn't really comprehend probably from an early age.
I just was like the emotional cooler. I had to be the emotional cooler for everybody and make sure that everybody's emotions were in check before mine were in check. So in this situation, and just to go back for a minute, when everybody was sitting at the table and the discussion came up about this person moving in, I instantly, like, because everyone's like, oh yeah, shaking hands and kind of there's now like a joke going on about it. I shot up from the table and ran to the bathroom and like was so physically sick. I could never, it took me years to figure out why that moment happened. But it was in that moment was probably when I realized how unsafe everything really was.
Oh.
Because all those, you know, despite the fact that I'm an adult and I can take care of myself, it's just that disregard for who you are to me.
Yeah, that you're
right. Like you're still my protector, despite the fact that I'm old enough and this isn't protecting me from this behavior.
Oh,
That's
so
and it's not, again, it has nothing. I really don't hold the third party responsible for any of this. And people be like, why? I just don't. Because I feel that person too had a lot of fucked up shit going on. And again, when we're all thriving on chaos and then we find a pile of chaos, then it's kind of just, you're in your cocoon, right? Yeah. So you're in your safe space. But for me, it was actually a big turning point for how feelings changed towards my dad. And they were up and down for a lot of years after that. Like, I mean, he was my mentor, my everything for a very long time. And then in, these particular moments, and starting with the very first incident with, at 16 with a friend, just this passive behavior. And I mean, not that I expected him to like lose his mind and, kick anybody out or be crazy and beat somebody up. But I expected him to respect and protect my feelings and protect to me, it's a sacred thing, right? So you're not protecting my sacred space as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah.
You're just letting it, letting it go. And the other thing too about my dad, like, God rest his soul, I love my dad. Talk about him. He had this almost macabre, like he loved the darker sides of life. He enjoyed these really weird situations. It was like he thrived in them. Again, some sort of chaos for him, obviously, that I was unaware of. I mean, I didn't know that he really had anything like that in his life for him to, crave this darker side of human nature, I guess you could say. So yeah, it was probably it was a very, I mean, I can't tell you how many people called me white trash. I got that a lot because
people knew about it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, on the flip side of that, I get it.
Well, I mean, it was a really ridiculous situation.
Well, it is. And it is. And you think,
I mean, it's not like you had any control over it, but
no, but I definitely wish I had.
People don't
I became very
understand
immersed in it though. Yeah. I became very, it was a daily part of my life, just, going through these motions, knowing that it wasn't something that but I almost took on that sort of like, this sort of like intrigue and like towards this sort of very rebellious lifestyle, I guess you could say. I realize it's not something I carrying on. I wonder if that's something like I just developed just to survive that situation.
Yeah, I would say so.
So it just sort of like that.
Well, you're trying to make it the most, like you're trying to normalize it to some degree for yourself so that you can like understand it to whatever degree you could and cope. I mean, that's my perspective. And I mean, I mean, it's such a crazy scenario. Like you didn't have any choice, obviously, in this matter. So you were just along for the ride. And, it's heartbreaking to hear you say that, you really recognize that your space wasn't respected and that you realized that your well-being wasn't primary focus. And unfortunately, it took you so many years. And, you were almost an adult when all of this happened. But I mean,
it reiterated to me how
careless, like that their behaviors became after so many years of, I mean, for themselves, you know, I'm sure there was a you know, pretty significant degree of mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so they likely, and I say they because I mean, there was multiple people involved in this, likely didn't know like how bad it was even for themselves. Like they didn't,
exactly.
they probably, if they could have removed themselves and looked at the situation rationally as an outsider, or as a rational person could, then they would probably recognize that it was very ridiculous. Their behavior was absolutely unacceptable. But because they were so immersed in their own issues and not,
well, addiction was a huge issue. The addiction,
right? Like they were
they were absorbing the addiction, and then there was the chaos
doing that reckless behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't. It did come to the point, you know, obviously once everybody's sobered up, this is still continuing, and everybody's going about their daily lives and doing their things. And again, as bizarre as it sounds, it wasn't terribly
like it wasn't
it wasn't terribly tumultuous, which you would think it would be given the circumstances, but it really wasn't. And I believe a lot of that came down to, my parents always said for years, when you go through the motions with them, and their ups and downs and their highs and lows, one thing that they would consistently say to me is, we stay together for you. We stay together for you. So that also.
So they would tell you that all the time?
Yes. Yes. That was a big thing. We stay together for you.
Both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of them. And I believed that they did that because it was, they thought they were doing what was best for me. So again, when you're seeing this, you're thinking, this is the best for me? How is any of this the best for me?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, it is. These are just some of the things that really messed with just my confidence in people in general, really. And my own confidence. I struggled, and I still do struggle with self-confidence in a lot of ways. This has definitely pulled me out of my shell, for sure. Not that I don't ever talk about this stuff, but not to this degree, not in a, in a mature manner, I guess you could say. Whereas before it was like kind of a party joke.
Well, for sure. We were definitely growing up, you know, thought it was like, it was ridiculous, but it was like fun and games and silly, like ridiculous behavior. But like, we were still there, real, and we were still, it didn't seem real.
No, definitely.
We were there, we were partying, we were partaking in the festivities.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
Their addiction, unfortunately, as minors.
Yeah, exactly, as minors.
Also, but we knew that this wasn't a normal situation. Obviously, it doesn't take, you know, much to be able to point that out. But you're right. It definitely didn't seem like it was, like you said, it wasn't like very like hectic, or like there wasn't a lot of arguing or anything like that.
Well, that's the thing. Everything sort of just it became less like there was no arguing anymore between my parents. My dad wasn't as absent. These things are so fucking bizarre. It's just ridiculous.
He wasn't as absent.
He wasn't as absent in the sense that when it was just like him and I and mom in the house, he would just disappear. He would just either be in the workshop doing stuff, or he would hide in the rec room, or, you know, he would go to bed at 8 o'clock, read, do whatever. He just was always absent. Or he'd go sit on the deck, just not interacting with her. You know, if he wanted to come, he'd come hang out with me but for them, there was just, it got to the point where there was like zero to no interaction, really. And then this happened, and all of a sudden it weirdly rekindled their, I think the most uncomfortable, actually. I don't know if I should talk about this, but I feel like, no, I'm going to talk about it, actually. I'm going to. So one of the most uncomfortable situations in this whole scenario for me was about a week after this person had moved in. My mom went to bed with my dad. they hadn't been together in years,
Wow.
like physically together. I'm like it was the most like
confusing. Was he still there?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
he's in the other room.
He's in the other room. She just slipped over to her own room and did whatever, and then went back to the other room.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, and I really want to. I really, really, really need to say this. I'm not trying to completely shit talk my mom. I know that that's how it seems. I'm just really trying to get across how fucked up this was and how I just didn't have the capacity to understand or to even grasp. And she's telling me this in the morning that this has occurred, and I'm angry. I'm very upset. I'm confused because I don't really understand why this is happening. And then she is victimizing herself by telling me that, basically my dad treated her like a porn star. You're telling me this. I don't want to know this.
So then she does this, and then she victimizes herself in relaying the information about what happened. Yes. And then she's victimizing herself, yes, saying that your father was treating her like a porn star.
Yeah.
See, I feel like you've told me these stories before, and I don't know if I just was either like, I don't know. I don't know if
they
I
hit
just
a lot differently when
you're older and you realize these things, or maybe when you I have no idea. But
well, the other thing is the other party never knew about this, so like the third party person didn't know that this ever occurred.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
with your parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, it was.
And then doesn't the plot thicken and your dad move somebody in?
That was actually right after. So we did carousel family, like roundabout family. We'll call it roundabout family. So we got rid of the two. And then my dad found.
Wait a minute, you got rid of the two? What do you mean? So, like she got rid of him?
No. So my mom and her new man moved out.
Oh, okay.
They moved out, and then it was just Dad and I.
Okay.
For about, I don't know, let's see, maybe 2 weeks, a month. It could have been longer. I don't remember. It seemed like it was very compact. And then he moved in his
girlfriend,
treat of the week or years, whatever. She was a treat. And with her came 2 kids. And
what? I don't remember the kid part.
Yeah, there were 2 kids that came with them. And, again, I felt terrible for them because they were too living in this perpetual fucking chaos. So yeah, now we've integrated
multiple
more chaos into
the
environment. So it's gone from I'm sort of getting myself back, and
you're like, okay, this seems more stable.
Yes, I'm like, okay, I'm getting myself back. Things are kind of leveling out, calming down. And then, boom, we are moving in this new person with her 2 children. And this person does not leave the bedroom. Like my dad's bedroom. She never left the bedroom? She barely ever left the bedroom. Didn't do anything. Didn't clean, barely cooked meals, barely did anything. These kids, they sustained themselves.
How old were the kids?
I want to say like 14 and 10 at the time, I think. And they're sustaining themselves. And I'm resentful at this point because I don't. This is my space has been completely
overrun.
Yeah. And I no longer. I think one of the worst things was during this course. I had so. This is going on a couple of years here, so there's a couple of years anyways. I'd become pregnant with Haley, and it was very apparent that I had to move out. So took the leap and went and moved into the apartment underneath my mom and her, boyfriend that she's had since she moved out. Not a good time. So living there, because we had to leave the situation, I had to leave the situation. It was just too volatile. I couldn't deal with it. Living in the house with my dad, his girlfriend, and kids, just couldn't do it. And my dad, when I had left, and he was angry with me because it didn't end well, and I think we didn't talk for a couple weeks, which isn't much like how our relationship ever was. But he said to a friend of mine, when my friend mentioned the situation and that I had moved out, he was like, "I don't care if she drops dead."
Your dad said that
Yes.
about you?
Yeah. And I will never forget how painful that was. Like, just, he might as well have ripped my heart out and just set it on fire.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, again, I say this, and it hurt. It was an awful period of time. But this is also somebody struggling with addiction, somebody struggling through their own stuff. And sometimes we say things and think things that we don't mean. And I do believe that I don't believe for 1 second that was
like really how he felt.
No.
Yeah.
But it was also something that, probably didn't need to be brought to my attention. Oh, it's funny talking about it just makes my whole body just go into like a panic mode. Because it was one of the most devastating things that I ever.
Well, especially because you're making decisions in your best interest, and then being met with a comment like that from somebody who's clearly not in the right state of mind, and then they're making these comments, which, you know what I mean, is not an excuse for it, but
No.
To your point, that's probably not how he truly felt.
No, it wasn't.
He was dealing with his own shit, and obviously in a situation where it was very ridiculous and chaotic and confusing, and everybody's probably very confused.
Well, it was almost 3 years of just absolute chaos.
I can't believe it was that long.
It went on for
Yeah, so crazy.
I want to say at least 2 years. No, it was longer than that because I mean, my mom continued her relationship for probably 7 years.
Oh, was it that long?
I think so. Yeah. And then my dad, he was also with that person for 7 years.
Oh wow! I didn't realize it was that long.
It was a very long. Like, I wasn't a part of it for that long. I was only a part of it for probably like a year to two, but it lasted for quite some time. And then with my dad, the woman that he was with, every year they have some big blowout, and he'd end up moving out, or she'd move out. It just seemed to be annually in the springtime, which was really strange that this would occur.
Okay.
And this happened, over the course of pretty much their entire relationship. But the worst one was when he just disappeared. Couldn't find him. I had no fucking idea where he was. And we're going days, no contact, no anything. And and this is one of the first breakups. Couldn't find him. Had to file a missing persons report. At that time, we were going through, a friend of ours had lost a baby, and we were dealing with that and waiting for the police to finally, let me know, have you found him?
Expecting the worst too, right?
Honestly, expecting the worst, because when I spoke to his when I spoke to the woman he was with, she's like, I packed his shit and he left and went down. I don't know where he went. And I was thinking, fuck you. Like, this person takes care of you. Fuck you. Yeah. Honestly, you don't care. Fucking idiot. Sorry, it really pisses me off. So
I do remember when all this was happening.
Yeah, couldn't find him. And then I think I came back actually from the funeral, and I got a call from the police, and they were like, we found your dad. And I'm waiting, like, okay.
Like, dead or alive.
And they're like, we need to bring him to your house.
Oh, God.
You need to bring him to my house. Like, what? So Haley at the time was small. Like, she was like maybe, I want to say 2 or 3. She was small. So here we are at the apartment. The police bring him over. I don't want him in the house because he has not taken care of himself in like a good. I think it took them about 5 days to find him.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So they're like, we need to bring him to you. Okay.
So he's been like a week on a bender and somewhere, and he's not taking care of himself. And
this is just wait till I tell you. So my dad had been doing all this work at the Blackbird Marina that was down at the West End of Bronzeville.
Okay.
And he's been doing a bunch of work down there. So he was hiding in one of the boats that they had hoisted up.
Mm-hmm.
So he was sitting up there, just drinking and smoking and having a fucking grand old time by himself, not telling anyone where he was. And the only reason why the cops found him is because he flicked his lighter. They heard the lighter click.
Really?
And that's how they found him. Otherwise, he probably would have sat up there for God knows how long. But he was in, when they brought him to me, he was very intoxicated.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm like, you cannot come in my house, which was
difficult.
Really hard.
Yeah.
Because I have a small child. You can't
be around.
Like, you smell,
mm-hmm.
You're drunk. This is not okay.
Yeah.
So, you can't come in the house. So then it was trying to figure out what to do with him. And I honestly don't remember what we did. Like, he was taken care of. I think he might have gone to a men's shelter for the night or something until he could get his shit together.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyways, that was the first time they split up. And like we reconciled everything after that. I was just happy he was alive.
Right.
He was mad at me for calling the police. He was so pissed off at me. He's like, they were talking on the radio about how I have fucking duct tape holding my glasses together. And I'm like, well, it's a very distinct feature. I'm sorry, but it is.
And he always had duct tape.
He always had duct tape. I know. I'm like, listen, it's a distinctive feature. He's like, oh, you made me sound like they found you in a boat. Okay, I don't really know what you want me to say here. It's not like they found you on the beach in fucking Bali.
Right.
They found you in a goddamn boat.
Boat in the marina.
Pretty much drinking yourself to death. Like,
yeah.
This isn't glamorous no matter what way you slice it.
Exactly.
So let's just move on from
that. Mm-hmm.
And we did. But the very last one, which was the absolute worst. Sorry, see, this just spun.
No, it's interesting.
It just spun.
It's interesting, and it's, I mean, we laugh now at these stories, to some degree. I remember it being very difficult at the time. I mean, obviously I wasn't going through it, but I remember being with you through this and it being just so bizarre and unfortunate, the circumstances that just continued to unravel and the ridiculousness from both sides that you were always trying to manage, and how exhausting, and you had a new baby, and you had, you were, pulling your life together in a beautiful way, and you were still being, tasked with like taking care of these people who had no respect for themselves or you, really. They loved you, of course, but they had no respect for themselves.
I don't think they had any idea the magnitude of the burden that it was to be this person who I'm gonna cry. I can't tell you how many times like I planned a funeral in my head for both parties. I still do for my mom, but my dad always planning a funeral from the time I was probably fucking 10 until the day that he died. Yeah. Always waiting for that phone call, waiting for someone to be like, this is it, this happened. Just to back up, the very last time that him and his ex-girlfriend broke up, and he went and lived in this I don't want to say a halfway house, but just a 1-bedroom, what do you call that? Like it's a shared accommodation, whatever it is. And he was living there, and I got a phone call one day, and I can't remember if I was at work or not, but I got a phone call, and this woman is hysterical, and she's like, I think your dad has passed away on the couch.
Oh, I remember this.
And I was like, okay, have you checked his pulse? She's like, she went down and she's like, I just can't get him to wake up. He's not rousing. She's like, this place is, she's like, it's absolutely horrific down here. She's like, yeah, he can't stay here anymore. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's not really my concern at this particular, is he alive? Like, that's what I need to know. Is he breathing? So she's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, well, call an ambulance. If you're not sure if he's fucking breathing, call an ambulance. I don't, this isn't fucking rocket science.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are you calling me for? I'm not a fucking paramedic.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah. I'm not with you right now.
Exactly.
Like,
Call
I'm not
goddamn
there.
ambulance. So I don't know, it was weird. She didn't want to call, I had to call a fucking ambulance. So I called the ambulance. The ambulance goes, and they're like, he's just very intoxicated. Honestly, he's not dead. He's just very intoxicated. And this is, they're like, this is not a good situation. So,
is that when he was like up near where my dad lived?
No, that was a different time. No, this is when he was living in town.
Oh.
And anyways, my dad's best friend, who's also passed, wonderful, wonderful man, named Al. He was a recovered alcoholic and had been for years and years. And he loved my dad very much. He did lots of stuff with him. And Al was always somebody that I would go to when things were really bad with my dad. And because I knew that, they grew up together on the farm. So we're talking, like 60 years, these guys have been friends. So I call him and I'm like, I need your help. I gotta get dad out of this place. This woman's freaking out now that he's not dead. She wants him out. And so he agrees to meet me at this place. And I've never been to this place. I just happen to know where it was. So I go and I walk in to this place. And Al is with me. And here is my dad laying on this couch. And the couch is dripping urine.
Oh.
And there are 4 or 5 2-liter bottles of urine beside this couch. My ex-husband was actually with me at the time too, and he was even like
mortified. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this. And then Al walks in behind me, and one of the hardest things I've ever seen in my life was this grown man turned and he bawled his fucking eyes out.
Oh.
He could barely breathe. He was so
distraught.
Just so distraught. Just seeing that was just hit him so hard. And here I am. I'm not even reacting.
No.
I have no emotion. I'm grateful he's alive. I know I got to get him off this couch. I got to get him into some like dry clothes. Got to get whatever we can to take him. And I was like, I'll take him home. So we get him up and riled, and he's apologetic and he's embarrassed, and it was really hard. And Al takes him home, and then 2 days later, Al calls me because my dad is going through detox. Does he not have a seizure in the driveway? Has to go to the hospital because his whole face is just like hamburger.
Ugh.
Because he took and that would happen to him often because he was more of a binge drinker than he was a full-time dedicated drinker. So when he would binge drink, that's when he had seizures afterwards. So, I mean, that happened multiple times, but that one was bad. It scared Al because he thought,
he didn't realize probably how bad.
Well, he thought, fuck, if there had been like a puddle and I hadn't seen you in time, he's like, you would have drowned. Wouldn't have been able to get to you. So, yeah, those are hard memories. And not that I haven't talked, I have talked about them.
You haven't talked to that detail.
No.
Maybe like you haven't talked in that detail with me.
I don't think I've talked about it on a more serious note of things.
Yeah.
I always make light of things because it's my way of coping. And it's my way.
It was like more like light later conversation and like, hey, this is what happened. Yeah. I don't know. See, this is where like I feel like I was always going through my shit like at a similar time, and I was not emotionally available to hear these stories when you were telling me them, because I do remember them, but I've also blocked so much out.
Exactly. I wasn't
that-
even emotionally ready for these stories that I was a part of. I wasn't. I've never, like, thinking back to that moment of seeing my dad like that. I feel emotion now. I had no emotion at that moment. It
Well,
was like just right into okay,
Right
we
into
got to deal
acts,
with
yeah, you
this.
have to
Like
deal
this
with
is
it,
what needs to be done, and I can't.
So often trauma survivors are very good in those types of emergency situations. It's very common, and it's difficult to articulate sort of what happens, but because you have always been around like a chaotic situation, you are always like very much prepared. Like you've always very much prepared yourself for the worst case scenarios.
You handle worst case scenario than you do best case scenario.
Yeah.
You're almost
So-
disappointed when things aren't in a chaos. I can't tell you how many times that was another thing.
Yeah.
How many times you get a phone call and you're like, okay, this is it. This is it. This is the end. Maybe I can actually, live my life a little bit. And I don't have to constantly be in this state of worry, and to have somebody be like, have that situation arise.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guilt that you feel because there was part of you that just wanted it to be over.
Right.
Because you're so tired
Yeah.
of,
I definitely, I understand that feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, that's heavy stuff to have to deal with for anybody, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Al was, distraught and
Oh, he was devastated.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
that was the part that broke me more than anything. Was turning around and
See.
looking at him, and he's turning around trying to not to
Bother
show me
you,
that he's
right.
upset.
Yeah.
But he is full blown breaking down
Yeah.
in that moment. And that's his best friend that he's known since they were little kids. And he's seeing somebody completely deteriorate. I can't imagine.
And self-inflicted.
Yeah. I can't imagine for him how awful that moment would have been. It's different for him because he's on the outside versus me being on the inside and constantly dealing with these things. And he even turned to me and he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I this has been my whole life.
Yeah.
This is not new.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not saying it in a condescending, nasty way by any means. I'm like, I'm used to this. And he's just, you shouldn't be used to this.
Yeah.
I that doesn't, at that time, it was neither here nor there. It didn't matter. It was what it was. And there was nothing I could ever do to change that.
Right.
I'm just grateful that for whatever reason, I was given the skills to be able to handle the things that came at me when they did, to see the things I saw, to be able to not turn that into such a deep-seated hatred and pain.
Yeah.
That it destroyed my life, because it very easily could have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and that tends to happen with a lot of people who have been through, like, just relentless, which is what it was. It was just relentless chaos, toxic behavior in all forms. Yeah. It's horrific, honestly. Like those stories are terribly disturbing, unfortunately. Like it's difficult to hear. It's honestly difficult to process that was like what was happening.
Yeah.
Obviously for you going through it, difficult to process. Hearing it now is like, wow, that is, it's so unbelievable.
It's so strange too, because I still, sorry guys.
Goes with a shirt.
Oh yeah, sure. I found this in my laundry room. I'm not sure where it came from, but I thought it was pretty. So, I kept a sweater on. I didn't want to offend everybody the entire time. So, I still, again, this is the thing. So I'll automatically revert back to comedy. Like, this is what I do. Like, I don't want to get caught up in it to the point where
it just crushes you.
Because truth be told, it probably would if I really. Sometimes I feel there are things that you kind of just have to you can hold it, but you really just got to let it go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
You just,
yeah.
you can't hang tight to those ones because they're really hard, and there's just so much attached to them that can absolutely destroy you. So they're obviously in my memory bank. There's nothing I can do to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely don't.
They're not something that like you dwell on anymore.
No, I don't.
Like
I
you've been
honestly
able to
haven't
move
dwelled
on.
since the time that
That's good.
I talk about them because I do feel like it's important when it arises to, let it have its moment and then let it go.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I hate saying it. I do kind of love that saying.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, all in all, these are people that are dealing with magnitudes of pain that I had no concept of.
Sure. Yeah.
I had no concept of that.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I'm also grateful too that I don't hold a whole lot of resentment because I do understand now that these were people that
are very damaged souls that have not dealt with their situations in a healthy manner.
No.
Or put in the work and to try to heal and cope. And
well, and that's the thing. My dad did try, though. I have to say, my dad, when things,
addiction's a tricky one because
it
is like it's definitely something that I don't want to make any excuse for it because I have very little tolerance, but it is more complicated because when you involve addiction, which unfortunately a lot of people who have unresolved issues or who've been through some shit tend to go down that road. And it's very sad to watch because it's something that just totally takes over and it just amplifies the situation so terribly. But it just, it's not an excuse.
No. But I have to say, there were, a few years he was in and out of rehab. He tried. He went, and that's the thing that I have to give credit to. Once he realized, how bad it really was, he did try.
Yeah.
Even though it got him, at the end though it didn't get him. He spent his last year of life sober, which I think is
really
painful. He did, yeah. So
how do you know that?
Because I was around
a lot, yeah.
And he was sober. And he was hanging out with Al a lot too, and Al was keeping him alive. Yeah. So he did really good. He spent his last year of life sober, and he did spend years off and on. Like there were times where he'd have bouts of sobriety, but he was also so fucking afflicted by all these things he just never dealt with. Mm-hmm. That addiction would take him just to get out of his own fucking head, his own skin, his own shit. So well, it's certainly true that,
just sitting with it and having to face your own thoughts and process your own emotions is, I would say, it's so bad. It sucks.
It does.
It's so worth it.
Yes.
It fucking sucks so much.
It's one of the hardest fucking things you'll ever do for yourself is to sit in your own shit and identify where you've gone off the rails, where you've gone wrong. And, you also do the whole, like, the super ego kicks in and it's like, oh, you really fucked up. You really fucked up bad. And you can become so immersed in the guilt that it will push you back to the addiction, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what would happen to my dad. Yeah, yeah. So it's very hard to be self-accepting, especially when it's not instilled in you, first of all. Yeah. And in that generation, that was not really something that was even, looked at. Yeah. As far as that went, it was kind of like, suck it up, buttercup. Yeah, no, it's true. You think shit's hard? Well, too fucking bad for you. Yeah, deal with it. And that's the unfortunate part of that, because that's what really, really hurts people as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. The bearing it and making people feel bearing it and feeling like you have no one to talk to about it and feeling like you don't have any... Feeling like it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. All it matters. All of it matters. Big, small, fucking, it doesn't matter. If it bothers you, if it hurts you, if it's really pulling you down, it fucking matters. Yeah. That's all there is to it. Yeah. Yeah. So
And I mean, that's part of why we're doing this, right?
Absolutely. That's 100% why we're
bringing
doing
light
this.
to some of these dark situations that people feel like they're going through completely alone and isolated. And while you might be the only one in your immediate circle who, is dealing with it, there are people who have been through some stuff who can identify, maybe what these things might be or what this looks like, and have maybe come out the other side, or who can offer some advice. And we're just talking about
and I mean, I'm still coming out the other side. I'm still coming out the other side.
Courtney,
I have 38 years of garbage that I have to sort through, and that's not just going to happen overnight. I'm not just going to wake up one day and that's going to be gone. I'm gonna continuously go through the ebbs and flows of that stuff. But I'm definitely, much stronger of a person for it. I've turned it into, strength versus dwelling in it.
Yeah.
And not that makes anybody that, goes through that. That's, their particular. Some people are just built differently.
Yeah.
Some people are more afflicted than the other, and that's not.
You've put in a lot of work.
I have. That's the other part of that too. You do have to be
like exceptional amount of work, and it's continuous, and it's proving to serve you.
Yeah, I would say so.
Moving forward with your life, because you're able to be a healthier, more productive, more loving, and fulfilled individual, as opposed to being eaten up by all of this. And going down the road of, like, I know I definitely felt like, I'm just gonna throw in the towel and fuck it. Like, I'll just they seem like they're happy, I'll just do that too. Right? Like, and it like, those thoughts have gone through my mind as well, I'm sure, with you, like, many people have, right? But it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And it can be better. And even if you've been down that road and you're trying to correct it, it can be better.
It is.
It's tough.
It is. I don't feel like good things just come easily.
No, for sure.
I mean, some of them do, but I feel like for the really, really good stuff, you
gotta work for
it. And it makes it that much better.
Yeah.
When you worked for it, it wasn't just here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So,
well, we unpacked a lot.
There was a lot of unpacking, so I apologize to anyone if this is triggering. I appreciate all the love and support that we have received in the last few weeks of doing this podcast, and it's really been an incredible ride. So I hope you stay tuned. And
Courtney, we thank you you have shared so much of what has taken place and the wisdom that you have, and you're helping a lot of people by being a voice for some of these scenarios, and an advocate for positivity and growth and progress and healing, because that stuff is heavy.
It is a little weight bearing.
But
that's not the right word. But
the more you talk about it, the more you can feel a little bit lighter and let a little bit more of it go.
And
hopefully,
thank you too. Like, you're always sharing your stuff, and you always have great words of wisdom, and you ask a lot of great questions that also incite a lot of the things that I'm able to talk about. So you're a good
match.
Good flow.
I hope everyone's enjoying this. This was a story and a half.
This was I didn't anticipate it to escalate the way it did, but that's sometimes how storytelling goes.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you talked more about your dad this time.
I did. I don't. That's the thing. It's hard to. I don't know. My words are my words are leaving me, only because it's midnight and we've been dealing with children. Now I just unloaded a whole bunch of shit that I now have to.
Hopefully you can sleep
emotionally digest. So
yeah. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will leave it at that, and see you in the next episode.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit those subscribe and share buttons. We'll see you at the next one.